see you.
Michael?
This is it. He's running it. He's running the show tonight.
It's going to be the three of us.
Three of us, yeah.
Mike, is Nick coming down?
No.
Okay.
I got caught up. I went out there to the
The bike share thing, yeah.
I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the City Council Subcommittee known as Development and Government Relations. It's a meeting scheduled for 6:30 today, Monday, December 18th. Present to my far right is Councilor Michael Sullivan. Next to Michael is Councilor Peter Tallman, and my name is Joe McGivern. Joined us from the City Council is also Councilor Diosdado Lopez. The chair will note that item number 1, we do not have copies of any minutes from the DGR committee for our last 3 meetings, so I guess we can just label that on the table till we get them.
Motion to lay on the table.
second.
So moved. All those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Ryan?
Mike. Is there the button over here? You know how to do it? I don't either.
Excuse us for technical difficulties for 1 minute.
These.
What? I don't know. No, he's downstairs in the camera. I don't know which switch it is. Ryan, if you can hear us, we need the chamber mics on.
You know where it is? I know there's one. Oh, there's a.
No, don't go.
Of course you will. Yeah, you heard us.
It's like the Wizard of Oz. Who's behind the curtain? Huh?
There we go. Sounds good. You're gonna do.
Check, check.
We're good.
Thank you, Ryan.
Motion.
And item number 1, we laid on the table.
table.
It's the minutes that are not available at this time. Item number 2 is a special hearing application of a Mr. Eric Cassidy. The request is for a non-conforming use at 4.72 187 Sergeant 301 Linden Street. We have an assessor's map known as 077 Block 2, Parcel 9. The change of use would be from what was recently a barber shop to a chiropractor's office. The chair wanted to take a motion to open the public hearing.
Move to open the public hearing.
Motion made second to receive and open the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? During the course of a public hearing, we would ask anyone that's speaking to the committee to please come forward and use the standing mic. Please identify yourself with your name and residential address and an explanation of what you're here for. We might want to hear from Eric first, just to get the property straight, and then we can hear from the, is it Doctor? Okay, we would hear from you, Doctor. And okay, Eric, do you want to start? Yes. I'm sorry, too, for everybody in the audience. We are being taped, and we are live on TV on an access channel for the local community. Just so, not to scare you from speaking, but just so you know.
Test.
Thank you. Just your name and residential address.
My name is Eric Cassidy. I live at 39 Upland Street, Springfield, Massachusetts.
Okay, and Eric, you're representing,
My brother, William Seth Cassidy.
okay, and
From
he,
Oregon.
I understand, lives out of state?
Yes.
Okay, and he is the owner of the property?
Yes.
Okay, and could you just briefly describe the property to us and if you know what the history was, but when the barber shop was closed up shop?
So we took over possession probably 4 or 5 years ago at this point. My brother did. At that time, it was a barbershop, and it's been a barbershop or a hair cutting area for the entire time we've been there until about August, maybe the end of August, maybe September. I can't remember exactly, but we evicted the tenant for non-payment. Since then, it's been in vacancy until we found new tenants that would probably be better suited for the area.
Okay, and the new tenants are the doctor that are going to?
Yes.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Yes.
The ones that are looking to use it as a chiropractor's office. For the record, I think the committee members know what non-conforming is. The original mixed use of this residential property started before the city had zoning laws itself, a zoning code. Therefore, it's grandfathered as a commercial use, the part of the building which has been used as commercial. When a commercial use stops, there's a 2-year window of non-use before the non-conforming privilege goes away. One of the few things we have to prove and also, recommend when we recommend to the city council, which I think I said is the meeting is tomorrow night, is that the new use is the same or less detrimental to the neighborhood. And pretty much we'll have some questions about the new use, anticipating questions tomorrow night. Okay? Are there any questions for Mr. Cassidy? Okay, Eric, do you have any questions for us? Okay, then we'll listen to the doctors.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Megan Hudson. I'm a chiropractor, and I would like to rent the space to treat patients. I work on people at a low volume. I'm not, some chiropractors see a lot of people during an hour, maybe spend 10, 15 minutes. I spend more half an hour to an hour with clients. So this is one reason. I actually live at 194 Sargent, which is right across kind of kitty corner to the property that we want to rent. So we're always looking at it and keeping an eye on it. And I just know in terms of the frequency of clientele that I would have, there wouldn't be as much of a turnover as what we observed with the barbershop. So when I think about how it could impact the neighborhood, I was thinking more traffic-wise, parking. And given the fact that I'm kind of a low volume, I don't see that as a problem. You have questions?
Any questions for the doctor? Counselor Tallman.
Yeah, thank you, doctor, for coming down. My concern a little bit is that, I know we can set it later, the hours, and when you say low volume, are you talking like 1-2 people a day, a few a week?
At the most would be maybe 1-2 people an hour. I mean, right now I've been working other places, so I do have a clientele. I've been in practice for almost 20 years. So I was previously in East Hampton and now Hadley, and now the fact that this opened up right across the street from us just made it really appealing. So low volume, meaning, some chiropractors, it's a high turnover during even just an hour. There's, multiple patients. Yeah, so it could be up maybe 5 to 10 a day tops, but, hopefully if I get more business going.
Will you be working just out of this one exclusively, or are we going to keep the other offices open still?
I'll be in Hadley 1 day a week.
Okay.
I own another business in West Springfield, so this has been part-time, and to have a space that's actually my space, not that some renting from somebody else, is very appealing. So I would, I'd be bringing in some clientele that I already have, but then also working to build more. When I say low volume, I just mean per day. Some chiropractors are seeing 100 people a week. So that's not what I'm doing.
And how many days would you plan on being open there?
Probably 3 or 4.
Okay. And the hours mostly just during the day hours, not at night?
No. Sometimes somebody might leave at like 7, but I wouldn't be later than that. There's a limit on how many people can be in the space. I think it's 10. could be in the space itself.
Yeah, 'cause the other concern I have was the traffic, and I know that's, not the traffic, but the parking.
Right,
know,
there's
most
two
people are
spots
yeah, there's
right in
only-
front that are designated. I know when the barber shop was there was a lot of traffic of all kinds
Right,
going
right.
on for a while. So, we want to just kind of take it on and make the neighborhood neater and cleaner. And, there's a kind of civic spirit to this venture as well. Since we live across the street, that's,
Right, yeah.
so.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the area, and I just, main thing is, people come in, you get one or two people, they come in half hour, an hour, then the next one comes in, it just, because I think in that area, there's not a lot of people with driveways, right? A lot of people park on the street, or are there people with driveways with cars? There are, okay,
Yeah.
right,
The neighbors have been thrilled at the prospect of across the street leasing this barbershop.
because it, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, that's the important thing for me is, nobody getting blocked out or, not having a place to park at night, and they come home at 4 o'clock and somebody's, taking up the 3 spots instead of 2 spots or whatever, so. But, that's my main concern. I think it would be, good for the neighborhood, something like, compared to what it was.
If I saw a lot of people, again, the high volume versus low volume, if I spent less time with patients and then I had a higher turnover, I don't think it would be a good location. So, but I don't. So
Right.
That's where I feel like, especially having seen the volume before, they could use our driveway if need be, and we could park on Locust Street.
And you're from, I know you're from, how long have you been across the street or kitty corner to that?
When did I move in? 2000, like 6, 7 years.
Oh, so comes
I
here.
used to help the woman who owned the barber shop before with like cleaning up, when the rocks would come down from the alley.
Right. Now, was the original barber shop, did it turn into somebody, sold it to somebody else, or that's what happened? Because I remember her, Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
People coming in, that was nice.
Yeah,
I'm going to cut you off, only because whatever we say in the hearing, we have to hear through this mic,
yeah.
okay? And you know that.
I know, yeah, okay. So that's my,
Little neighborhood dishing, sorry.
okay, that's my main concerns. I'm all set with questions.
Doctor, did you learn of this through the planning department or through the building department?
This meeting?
Of having to get this special permit? Or did Mr. Cassidy, did you learn?
Yeah,
it?
Eric told us,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
We had
And what-
we had looked at it in September, and then decided not to at that moment, and then moved forward just to say, yeah, we want to do this. And so then he had already gotten the ball rolling for this, but I think
Gotcha.
it just delayed, so.
And are there any changes being made to the existing dimensions of the barber shop?
No.
You're just going to do your own
Just painting.
modifications for,
Yeah.
cosmetic and whatever.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
going to be the same square footage, the
Yeah.
same space.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Counselor Lopez.
Can you help us a little bit more, be more specific? Are you talking about Monday through Friday, 9 in the morning to 7 at night? Can you give us more specific information?
I mean, quite frankly, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. This
That's
is
an
not
optimistic
This is
thing.
not this is a change of use of what is a mixed use because it's grandfathered because of it predates zoning, and as long as it's less detrimental to what's going on now, we pretty much have to determine that.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I guess if you want to ask, what were the hours of the barber shop?
Official? Yeah.
Okay.
They were not quality tenants in any
Can-
Okay, that's more than a barber shop, and I think you're going to be normal business hours.
Yeah, normal business hours, Yeah, and, every now and then I'll have a client that needs to come in later, but, it's not loud. I don't have music blaring. It's pretty quiet work. It's healing space, so, it's about getting grounded and healing, and it's not loud. But anyway, in terms of the business hours, you know, I have another business that I'm also running, so it's not, I'm not looking to have this be like a 40-hour week deal. This is really part-time. And when I say 3 or 4 days, I don't mean like full, all day, 3 or 4 days. So, you know, I'm hoping this will help bring business to Holyoke too, you know, just the whole, people come see me in Hadley, they should come see me here.
Councilor Lopez, I did cut you off, though.
No,
Are you?
I'm all set.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone who wishes to speak against? Okay, a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Motion made second to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Chair would entertain, if the committee so sees fit, a motion that upon holding the public hearing and receiving information from both the project manager, who is representing the owner of the property, the owner is William Seth Cassidy, Eric Cassidy is the project manager, and Dr. Hudson, did I get that right? You know, is giving us the what the new use is going to be about. The chair would ask that the committee's recommendation is that the new use will be less detrimental than what was being used as a barber shop, and that the new use will fit into the space that has been used commercially since predating the zoning ordinance itself. Is there anything anyone would like to add?
No. Make a motion to approve this special permit application, and that this use here will be less detrimental to the neighborhood.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to recommend to the full city council tomorrow evening that the special permit be approved, and our determination is that this will be a less detrimental use, and we would also add that it will be within the same dimensions as what is the existing commercial use now. Okay. All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved. So what happens next is we will recommend this. It will come out as a committee report tomorrow evening. The city council will make their determination. I would anticipate a vote. That will then be filed with the city clerk's office. There is a period of time before the city clerk can issue the special permit. And off the top of my head, I'm not too sure what it is. It's not long, but it might be, you know, X amount of days, okay? But if you call the city clerk's office in a you know, Wednesday, Thursday, they'll give you an idea of when it goes through, you know, if there's no issues. You're welcome to come down tomorrow evening. Tomorrow's evening, we will be on, the access channel is channel 15. You also can watch it on TV. It's unlikely now that the public hearing is closed that we will ask any more questions. If we didn't get all the answers, anticipated answers to all the city councilors who are not here this evening, we'll do our best to answer their questions tomorrow night. Okay? Thank you. Good luck to you.
Good luck.
Yeah. Item number 2, the communication from Elisa Zoller from the Office of Community Development regarding the fiscal 2007 annual plan reprogramming of the CDBG funds. Motion would be to take off the table.
Take off the table for discussion.
Motion made second to receive and take off the table for discussion. Alicia, you want to come in and bring us up to date? Yeah, wherever you're comfortable. Just grab a mic. You know the green light, right? I should read into the record. I'm doing the agenda and it doesn't have everything, but just let me do this real quick. The amount that we're talking about reprogramming is $154,257. I think it tells us that the Citizens Advisory Committee held a meeting on November 30th. 30-day comment period will open after that date, and because this was received by Alicia, it was dated November 20th and received by the City Council on December 5th. Okay, if you want to update us.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Good evening, happy holidays.
Evening.
We have been working with our respective subrecipients, mostly DPW, Conservation Commission, somewhat with the Parks Department, to move their projects along. And this season, in terms of bidding, has been somewhat interesting. We've had a series of bids that have come in significantly lower than anticipated, and we've had a series of bids that have come in significantly higher. And so for those projects where bidding has come in significantly lower, we want to shift that funding from those projects that no longer need it to the projects where bidding came in much higher than we had anticipated. So the correspondence that I had provided to you all, and actually we submitted it back in late November, and then I resubmitted it to the committee towards the end of last week. So it's been this has been floating around for a while. Indicates that it is a total of $154,257 that we've identified. Those projects that are being reduced include sidewalks, because fortunately the bids have come in much, much less than was anticipated. The facade improvement program has had funding for several years now, and we've been unable to secure an applicant that's qualified. So we're going to close that program for now and reanalyze to see maybe some other strategies or outreach, that sort of thing. Susie Park had multiple years of investments, and that actually came in much, to our surprise, under bid, and that project is now completed. We had a ribbon cutting at the end of October, beginning of November. And we are legally obligated to only spend a certain amount of our money each year on admin, and so we're going to take some admin funds from 2015 and put those back into the pot to meet the current needs. And those current needs are the projects that are going to be increased or added to, and they include the Mountain Road remediation. There's been a safety issue identified at Jones Ferry River Access Center. The fence has fallen down or is in the state of collapse, and so we're going to put a new fence there. We have a long waiting list of folks for our neighborhood improvement program, so we're going to put some money there. And our demolition program has been moving along at a great pace. Unfortunately, the demolition bids this year are coming in higher than anticipated, and so we're going to put $55,000 additional funds into demolition.
Any questions for Alicia?
Yeah.
Councilor Tom.
One quickly. After the Jones Ferry, he's talked about some kind of program that Hood, would you say, improvement?
We weren't given copies. I don't know why, but this is what was attached to the original communication.
Oh, the neighborhood improve. Okay.
It's our homeowner grant program for owner-occupied properties.
Okay. And you stated that the program with the improvement of the facade program, it's not, you're saying people are applying but they don't qualify, or?
So the facade improvement program has been funded and administered by the Chamber of Commerce for years and years now. And there was a new allocation of funds, I believe, in 2013 or 2014. And one of the barriers that we're running into are applicants are not current on their City of Holyoke taxes, fees, liens, water, sewer, and so they're not eligible for the program. We've been working with one property owner, 125 Main Street, Whitman Properties. You might have noticed some really great improvements down there. He's just finishing up, but that's really been the only active application that we've had. We did Gateway City Arts in that business district, but that was it. And so we're going to put that money towards these other projects and figure out maybe some next steps with the chamber. We are generous with the taxes and fees. If somebody wants to enter into a payment plan with the City of Holyoke, we're more than willing to accept a payment plan. But that money just has sat there. So, and that was actually decades ago, back in the 80s, it's my understanding the program was funded and had the same issues, that it just didn't move.
Right. And you stated the sidewalks. You say the bids came in high, so you're taking money from that was programmed to that to take it out of there?
So the bids actually came in very low.
Oh, low, okay.
Yep, they came in for the sidewalk setup that the DPW has for this year, for the sidewalks that they've listed that they want to do, the bids came in about $73,000 under bid. So we're going to take the rest of the money that was left over from 16 and a little bit of money from the 17, that's $73,000. And that's to say that the sidewalks that were initially anticipated to be completed will be completed. It's just that the bidding was a lot less. The other issue with sidewalks is typically our sidewalks are done in the fall, and that money is spent, so it comes off our books. And this year, the contractor was unable to mobilize until spring. So we want to hold on to that low bid, but we need to move this excess 73,000.
Out of there, okay. And one last question, you stated that you had the group that decided that, the citizens? So is that the only group that has to do that decision-making and where the money goes?
So in accordance with our citizens participation plan, when we get our annual allocation from HUD, it goes through a full proposal process. So we solicit proposals, and our season just actually opened last week on this, but we solicit proposals. The proposals are then reviewed by our Citizens Advisory Committee, by you all, by the full City Council, by the mayor, by OCD staff. When we're just moving money around that's already here, it goes through our reduced process. And so our process is we're working with folks who already have projects in the pipeline. We then come to you as a courtesy, as a notification. You all give us your opinion, your input, and then the mayor makes the final decision.
Okay, so in other words, that like when you sent out the letter, was it last November or whatever, it said, well, I don't think you should take the money from here. I think you should put it towards this project instead of, say, the Jones Ferry fence. And you just take that in consideration with the citizens group?
So we did a public hearing on November 30th. We had 2 people come and speak, and we didn't get any opposition to this listing. It's been published and it's out for a 30-day comment period. So if folks want to take a look and issue public comments, they're certainly welcome to. We're accepting public comments until January 2nd.
Okay. And this money will, in January, is that when it actually gets into the other?
So what we'll do is, once January 2nd comes, the mayor will do a final review of all the comments that have been submitted. We'll submit our request to HUD formally, letting them know that we're moving money. These are projects that are currently funded, except for Jones Ferry, that we're moving this money. HUD approves it. It's just an administrative step, and then we'll be able to amend these existing contracts.
Okay. And I know over the years, the money coming in has been dropping. But this in no way affects what's going to happen next year with anything.
Oh, no, absolutely not. In fact, this is money that's already here in-house, and we want to move it. And by doing this and putting the money towards projects that are going to move and spend the money, we're actually preserving our timeliness rating with HUD to make sure that we keep moving these dollars out the door. And in terms of where we're going for FY18, we do have our applications out on the streets, so if anybody's interested, let us know. We are holding a series of public hearings. We'll be back to see you probably in February or March to review those. Word from the feds was that the programs were slated for complete elimination, but I would say within the last couple of weeks, we're seeing better movement in Congress, and we may see an increase for July.
Okay. Thank you very much.
The best news we've heard from the federal government in a long time. Councilor Sullivan?
Yeah. One of the items is you've got, this will allow for demolition of one additional problem property. Can you tell us a little about that?
So as part of the problem property group, we meet with them monthly. We're part of that committee, and there's a constant evolving list of properties that should be demolished. Right now, we are out to bid for 285 Main Street and 405 Main Street. 405 Main Street, this is going to be the second time we've been out to bid. The bids that came in about 6 or 8 weeks ago for that one came in at almost $700,000. There was no way that we had that kind of money to take that one down. So we're looking to put this $55,000 either to 285 Main and 405 Main if we need it. If we don't need it, then we are looking at properties on, I believe, Southeast Street and South Bridge Street.
Okay. And we did get some down, some done, you're saying?
We've 285 Main and 405 Main have been our priorities, but like I said, the bids for 405 Main came in incredibly high, much higher than we had anticipated, and so that is out to bid. Those bids are going to be due on the 20th of this month. Meanwhile, we've been trying to take some of those low-hanging fruits, projects where we're not caught in housing court, where the land owner hasn't come back forward and said, oh no, I'm going to do a rehab plan. So we recently took down the Springdale Park old maintenance shed. You've probably seen that, the building that was falling down, and that's gone. And that was taken down with a combination of city efforts and CDBG funds. CDBG funds paid for the dumpsters, and then city staff actually had the equipment and knocked the building down for some cost savings. So we're trying to stretch those dollars.
Just, for the public and, for the council and general, could you tell us a little bit about the cost savings, how we affected that?
Sure. So in terms of cost savings, typically when we use CDBG funds for a demolition, we go out to bid, and that is a soup to nuts demolition. And so we are paying a private entity, a third-party private company, to remove the properties. And like I said, it can be very lucrative in the private market. The bid for 405 Main was about 700. One of the bids was about 700,000. In this case, with the Springdale maintenance garage, it was a test to see how this would work. And so instead of paying for a private contractor to come in, demolish the property, pay that work crew, pay him or her the disposal fees and all of the other costs associated with it, what we did was we broke the project apart. We used city staff who are already on payroll to physically do the work, and the only cost associated for us was with the dumpsters and with someone to oversee the hazardous waste piece of that.
Yeah.
So we're not paying, a couple of things is we're not paying what's called Davis-Bacon because they're city employees, and we're not paying someone to earn a profit on that project because we're doing it in-house. So I think over time we'll have a better handle on what the cost savings is going to be. But some of these, like I said, these smaller projects, these sort of low-hanging fruits, single-family houses, things that are small scale and relatively poor shape are easy for our city staff to work on. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that program goes.
And the city staff, this was the new position that was created?
It's a position between the building department and DPW. I believe he's a relatively new hire.
Thank you.
If I could take that back. If you want, I'll try to get copies for everybody.
I brought copies of.
If you could, it might help us. Thanks. I like the way you use two sides of the piece of paper here. Alicia, I don't think I have any additional questions, but if I could summarize it for tomorrow evening. Essentially, we've done reprogramming before. Between the amount and the change in programs, it is significant enough that the HUD tells you have to do this. So we got your information. I'll let the City Council know that the Citizens Advisory Committee is at the end of their process after a public hearing. The list is before us. I'll make sure everybody's got a copy of it. You gave us the explanation of the ones that are for good reasons because of the ones that came in under bid, and an explanation of where the money is going. And I think we all know demolition is certainly a high priority in terms of some of the things that we face. So essentially, the vote tomorrow evening is to accept the reprogramming and to give an endorsement, more or less, to go forward with it. Okay, is that enough?
Yes, that would be fine. Like I said, there's no accepting of the grant. The money is already here.
Right.
This is really informational and looking for your input.
Okay, so it's pretty much, it doesn't change the grant. It doesn't change much. It just says we've been advised, and hope you go forward. And
That would be correct.
okay,
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything further?
So, just a question.
Councilor Lopez.
Alicia, this is money from 2015 or 2016, the money that you are...
The money is a combination. It's a combination of
Okay,
years. For
I
instance,
see.
the facade improvement program, I believe, was funded initially in 14 or 15.
Yeah,
so.
I see. All right, thank you.
Great history, the facade program, but if people aren't using it, they aren't using it.
Yeah.
Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to receive and to forward back to the city council a recommendation that we have been advised of the need for reprogramming, the reasons for reprogramming, and that we endorse the reprogramming going forward.
Make a motion that we receive the reprogramming funds and endorse the recommendations by the Citizens Advisory Board. Yeah.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thanks, Alicia.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Yeah, thank you, Alicia.
Moving along, we're doing good, gentlemen. Item number 4, introduced originally by Councilor Bartley, in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 4A, the City Council approve and enter into a municipal agreement between the Town of Amherst, the City of Holyoke, Northampton, the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, the City of Springfield, and the University of Massachusetts for Amherst is a regional bike share program to replace the prior approved intermunicipal agreement. That prior one was dated 2015. The motion would be to receive and to open up for discussion.
Make a motion to receive this order and open up for discussion.
All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? We do have Marcos Marrero here with us to walk us through the final steps of this, and I hear some good news.
Good evening.
Evening.
Should I start?
Please.
Yes.
So I think I stated in the letter, it was probably the end of 2015 when the memorandum of understanding between several municipalities was approved by this body and signed by the mayor. Springfield, Holyoke, Northampton, Amherst, and the University of Massachusetts, subsequently also signed by South Hadley. The idea of the project is to have a regional bike share system in the Boston-Cambridge area. There's a bike share called Hubway in New York City. There's City Bike, but really there are dozens of these across the country. So we set off to see how we could get something like this done. The memorandum of understanding called for creating a business plan, and by our best estimation, just like what happens with other bike share programs, this would be seeking corporate sponsorships to take on a significant amount of the cost of the program. Any mass transit program really needs subsidies, and this is no exception. During our planning project, our planning phase and our initial funding phase, we were lucky enough to be able to secure federal dollars through the state. It's called a Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Grant, or CMAQ for short. Basically, we could prove that by the usage of the system, we would be displacing contamination from automobiles and other means. So that allows us to spend $1.3 million. For all the capital equipment and cement pads needed to set this up in our five communities, 6 if you count UMass. Additionally, we went out for an RFP for a operator that would actually sell the equipment for the capital costs and operate it. So if you think of like Zipcar, which we have in Holyoke, you would have some type of membership with an annual fee. You could ride the bikes in the community for probably a half hour, 45 minutes for free, but then after that you incur some sort of fee. And then of course with the sponsorships, a corporate sponsor could say, could have this station brought to you by, whoever, right? We're still looking for a flagship sponsor. So think of like City Bike isn't CITY as in the city of New York. It's CITI as in Citibank. So a flagship sponsor gets naming rights. But the reason why we're here with this MOU is that given all the advancements and the company that we secured, which is Bewegan, they have over 30 systems throughout the country. They put forward a very, very competitive proposal. Hands down, selected unanimously by all communities. One of the things that they provided was they would take the liability of costs off the municipalities. The way that we were initially conceiving of this was every municipality we would divvy up the cost of the system proportionally, and every municipality would have to either find the corporate sponsorship for their share or be responsible for it. So for Holyoke, I think it was around $83,000 a year for 3 years, which we were committed with the state to do in exchange for the capital funding. Bewegan has taken that liability off our hands, so the MOU reflects that, and also refers to the contract with them that's their responsibility.
Marcus, can I interrupt you?
Sure.
Could you just spell the vendor and his name there?
Bewegan is B as in boy, Ewegen.
Just like it sounds.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Another a couple of the additional benefits is that we were targeting to have 290 bikes in all our communities. They will be providing those 290, and they're kicking in another 210 bikes for a total of 500 bicycles in our system. They essentially, because we did this the right way, we did a feasibility study and a market study to understand where this would more optimally operate. They believed that the market was strong enough to provide additional bicycles, which would in turn strengthen the network, allow for better memberships, allow for better income for them. So even beyond the bikes that we're buying, they're providing additional ones. The third, and this is really important, particularly for Holyoke, is that there will be electric assist bikes. So they will have a tiny motor that, given our terrain, when you're going uphill, the motor kicks in, so you don't feel like you're going uphill. You feel like you're going on flat terrain. That also allows us to do other creative things, like if we want people to go slower on certain streets or slower in parks, we can, by the GPS tracking on the bike, it could actually make it cap the speed of the bike as well. So they're quite smart, these bikes. So the bottom line with this agreement, the changes are the city of Holyoke would no longer be financially liable as long as we stay in the program. Like with the capital cost to the state, if we leave before the 3-year term, which we would be committing to the state, then we have to give up the bikes. The term is increased to 5 years instead of 3 years. It recognizes that Northampton is the lead community because they're the ones receiving the state capital funds. That's a matter of convenience, so that then they can do one big check to the operator rather than each one of us having to accept a grant. And it refers to the Bewegan contract that was signed through Northampton.
Marcus, will there be like I don't know if it's the right term, but a kiosk in Holyoke where one could get a bike?
Correct. So there will be 9 stations is what we have programmed now. 2 of the 9 will have a kiosk where you can open up a membership, if you will, with a credit card or something like that. One of the kiosks would be right in front of Veterans Park, and I think the other one, I can't remember where we. See the city. I can't remember where we put it. I think it was in front of Seatown, the second one. But then we have another 7 stations. There's one in front of the train station, one next to the library, one in Springdale Park, one at Dwight and Pleasant Streets, one between the park and CVS, one on Route 5 and Beach Street, around the hospital. We haven't finalized the exact corner, and one at HCC. So that would be the 9.
And that's the existing agreement. We're not
Yes.
changing anything in terms of what was already accepted.
Right.
except-
That level of detail is not encompassed in the memorandum of understanding, and in fact, some of that is still it's still in flux because the company has the right, since they're taking all the risk, they have the right to, if a station isn't really working, we have 10 bikes on one corner, no one's ever using them, we're going to revisit that decision and try to locate it somewhere where the bikes are actually used.
Okay. Is the company for profit themselves?
Yes.
Okay. And the motor part, what operates the motor? What juices the motor?
It's electric, so the stations themselves will be connected to electricity, and they will charge the stations. The electricity will be paid for by the company.
Okay. Are we supplying electricity, or is the vendor going to be purchasing electricity from the gas and electric?
That's what I meant. They will be purchasing it. So
Okay.
we will be with the capital funds. We have a small allocation to make whatever little trench towards the next electric outlet or conduit, and they set up their equipment.
I think the biggest change is, or the good part of the change is we went from nominal liability to zero liability.
Correct.
Can you just put it in terms I can understand better, the vendor will have the liability, or Northampton will have the liability?
The vendor will. So they're going to start operating this in May. So one of the things that they see is that if each one of these municipalities are now having to scramble for sponsorships, that's not the most efficient way of getting sponsors. And also having municipalities only looking into their own boundaries. They're more flexible because they're a corporation that has a lot of development experience in securing, number one, a flagship sponsor, number two, doing very creative things. So someone may not be interested in doing just a cash sponsorship, but they can do, they can buy a huge block of memberships, for example, whereas we would not be able to process something like that because we don't have memberships to give out. And they see it, they see it as an investment. They're taking the risk. The risk is somewhere between $500,000 to $750,000, but they estimate that they can make up that gap in sponsorships given the type of market that they have here, because they've done it in other places, even in areas that aren't as population dense as is the valley.
Okay. And so you could theoretically rent, get a bike here in Holyoke and ride it to Springfield and leave it in Springfield?
Correct.
Okay. That's interesting.
But part of the operations is a rebalancing. So you have a daily rebalancing and then a seasonal rebalancing.
Okay. And and the last thing is the grant comes under Northampton?
Yes, the grant would go to Northampton from the state, and then most of that grant will go directly towards the vendor because that's what orders the bikes and all the equipment. A small portion of it, I think our portion is about almost $18,000 that we have apportioned for capital expenses for the installations of the station. So take, for example, if we needed to do some trenching, it's actually pretty simple. But if we had to get an electrician, or the DPW could probably do the work, but we would need materials for cement.
It's in-kind, in-house.
The labor will probably be in-house, but then all the materials can be purchased by Northampton, and we could use them.
Okay. Yeah. Is there any other questions? I apologize for dominating the period here.
You did, Dominic. I have a couple.
Counselor Dunn.
Yeah, thanks. And I know we talked about this earlier, about a month ago or 2 months ago. I know it's been going on a while. The vehicles, I know you the stations, the bikes. How many you think will be at each area or each station? About maybe 5 or something. Is it hard to tell you right now?
Probably more. We're probably looking at an average of 9 or 10. But in reality, that's being designed now. So the station will probably have the most bikes is right in front of Veterans Park. We have a multimodal center, and in the buses we have the zip cars. We have the most pedestrian traffic. We have the train station. So they would size a station that could accommodate more bikes than the bikes that would be there, right? So that station will probably be somewhere around 15, 16 bikes, but then you can accommodate more. So they're going to size the station slightly higher because some people are going to visit here. So they're going to need a place to park. A station, around, maybe like Route 5 and Beach Street will probably not have as much pedestrian traffic, and so that will be a smaller station. But again, always with a little bit more space. I can sense that the next question is going to be, what if the space runs out? So I'll just answer that. Each bike is equipped with a GPS system, so they know if a station is overcrowded. The bikes lock themselves in, so you can't ride them away. Yes, you can pick them up and take them, but that's not the smart thing to do when someone's tracking you. The operator, part of their job is they know if a station has space for 22 bikes, you have 23. They know one is virtually parked, as they call it. So they could always rebalance that day or that moment.
Okay, and getting them, you said it's going to be like a card, membership, or you get a credit card like type of deal. You get in there, you get the bike, and
Right, and one of the things we'll be working with them as well is how to facilitate membership for residents who are unbanked. Right, so if you don't have a credit card necessarily, making it easy for folks to pay with some sort of prepaid card or something like that.
Right, because I think that's important. Not everybody would have that, an account or a credit card or whatever.
Correct.
That's, and as time goes on, you're probably going to rebalance or look at the different where it gets the most traffic out of between the library, the high school, or the college, Seatown, downtown, Hampton, Pleasant, whatever. As time goes on, they just sort of.
Absolutely, they will be providing us data on the system, so we will have a great understanding, probably the best understanding in our history of what bicyclists are doing in the city. We have estimates, which is counterintuitively based on crash data, but other than that, we don't really we can't determine for sure where people are going with the bikes.
Right. And the other question is safety. Are they going to be provided helmets with the bikes? Or is that something that the individual is going to have to do?
We've discussed it in committee. That's not something that we're providing up front. I think in Massachusetts, if you're over 15, you don't have to have a helmet. But also for this system, no one under 16 can be a member. Just take the bike. So that's kind of a wash. No one under, I think it's 16. I think no one under 16 should be
okay.
Taking these by themselves. Now, it's something that we've discussed because there may be some foundations that may be interested in donating some for members. It becomes a little bit more cumbersome to supply them at the station.
Right.
And
just something to think about. I mean, I know it's been brought up, but you see a lot of people now with bikes that have helmets, and older people that, well, a lot of them are bikers. I mean, they're professional bikers, but somebody that's just taking a bike from, say, here up to the college or from here up to Northampton or something, you feel you wanted to have some kind of a safety in case something, happens. So, thank you.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah, just one quick question. So if some of these locations are going to be on, like the library, or it sounds like Crozier Field might be where you're referencing?
yes.
If they're on city property, is there any legal liability or insurance liability if somebody's injured or hurt?
They would be on the public right of way. That's where we're targeting all these initially because the entire system was what we thought the entire system, right? The 290 bikes were going to be provided by state Mass DOT funds. They had to be in the public right of way, so it couldn't be like on private property or anything like that. Or I'm not even sure if it could have been in the actual park. But no, we're being held harmless. We have no liability for, and that's in the terms of the membership. So, that fine print when you sign, every time you become a member of anything or take out an email account, then they're not holding us responsible for anything of that nature.
Okay.
Councilor Lopez?
Marco, 2 questions. Who's going to be the supervisor? I say, for example, a bike get damaged.
Mm-hmm.
So who's gonna? If there will be a number that you reported, or your department will be on top. How that's gonna work?
The day-to-day management. So that's customer service, repairs of the bikes, anything of that nature. Yes, there will be multiple channels towards the company. Definitely a call center, email, all that kind of stuff. The call center won't be here, but there will be a presence of folks that report to the company. They're actually subcontracting to, and I don't think I have the organization. I think I do actually, but it's buried in all this paper. It's a company that works with veterans, with military veterans, that will be performing the repair, the repair work. And the daily operation. So thinking who's driving the truck, picking up the bikes, mounting them, taking them to the repair center. But they're all accountable to Bewegan, and then Bewegan has one project manager at the company that reports to all of us municipalities. So we're still going to be working with them too. You know, the one responsibility that we keep is not a liability, but it's a good faith effort to work with them on sponsorship. So we will be in constant communication with them, and there will be a physical presence of someone here. On repairs, it's important to note that by their experience, they know that at any given point in time, once the program really gets underway, about 10% of the bikes will be under repair because stuff happens. You know, a chain breaks, they have to repaint it, something goes on. So one of the things that they'll be looking for as well is a warehouse space. We're already in conversations. They want to be in Holyoke for obvious reasons. We're smack in the middle of the partnership. We have warehouse space, so that'll be funny enough, a side benefit. They're probably going to be a tenant in the city. I'm not going to count my eggs before they hatch, but they have an interest of being here because it's strategically located in the partnership.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, every time you go to New York, I mean, you get one of those bikes and get it over. That's what I do.
My bike days are over, but I think it's a great idea.
I was thinking that we can come back and ride some bike around.
You had a second question?
So, yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Anything else? Chair will entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we accept the grant, the provisions of the grant?
The change in
of the
wording
wording,
for
MOU,
under Mass General laws, blah, blah, blah.
for the bike share program with change of MOU, to report that to the full council, to the regional bike share program.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Can I make a suggestion? Can we just bounce over 5 to 6? And so Marcus can just update us on 6. I think it's going to be kind of quick tonight.
Yeah, we take a motion to take up item number 6.
Right, second to suspend the rules and go to item number 6. All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? I had a chance to talk to Marcus. This is an order introduced by Councilor Sullivan and signed on by, I think, Councilor Lisi and a few other people, that the HRA and HEDIC meet with DGR to discuss the possibility and benefits of merging the two entities into one body. Marcus and I talked earlier today, and I know the two chairs are not available this evening, but I'm going to turn it over to Mike in 1 second, but can I suggest that maybe we get the two chairs to have the two bodies come back with their recommendations to us and have the two chairs here at a date of their convenience where we can ask questions and get some updates about why the plus and minuses of this, I think, a very good proposal, but not everybody agrees with it. Mike, I don't know if you wanted to add anything, but.
No, really, if they're not here, if Marcos would like to address it briefly, otherwise I just would table it for.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot we can learn, but Marcus, if you could, go ahead.
Sure. So they do apologize. By the time I got a hold of them, they just had competing commitments. But in general, this is something that, as an administration, we've been looking at for a while, for the past probably almost 2 years. It's been put on the back burner just because of the volume of projects. But the basic idea is that the city, for a long time, I'm talking decades ago, had a redevelopment authority, which did a lot of work in the mid-1900s, maybe the 60s. Then in some way it dissolved or went away somehow, and I think it's somewhat seeded what is now the Holyoke Economic Development and Industrial Corporation, which under that they're like cousins in Mass General laws. They're both organized under Mass General Law Chapter 121. They're also cousins with the Housing Authority. It's all encompassed there. The HEDIC then has done several projects over the years. Most recently, over the last decade, with a slowdown in two factors, I would say. One is the slowdown in manufacturing in the U.S., but also the scale at which manufacturing happens means that the type of equity that you need to have to fund, particularly fund in the way that HEDIC has operated, just HEDIC doesn't have that reach. It doesn't have that amount of equity. So it's been harder to identify the types of projects that HEDIC can sink its teeth into. In the meantime, over the past, it's been about 5 years, in 2013, we got the Urban Renewal Plan approved by the state. We have a very clear and ambitious set of goals and projects in the Urban Renewal Plan, which is now headed up again by the Redevelopment Authority, which was recreated by the city in 2008. 2009, thereabouts. So there's been this interesting dynamic where HEDIC holds a lot of assets, about $3 million in real estate and cash holdings, but less ability to execute on projects just because of the way the world and the economy is working. And the Redevelopment Authority, which has clear mandate, broader authorizations under the law as to the types of projects that it can take on, but it's cash poor. So we've looked at several angles of this, financially, legally, in terms of governance, on how we can merge the assets with the power, essentially. And there's no obvious recommendation yet. I think if it was obvious, we would already come forward with it. And there are definitely trade-offs. So one of the things that I discussed at the last annual meeting, particularly for HEDIC, I'm not sure if I brought it up for the HRA, in November, was that in 2018 our interest is to dust off all the analysis that we've done once again and see what appetite is by the city political leadership, the mayor, council, on how to structure something where ultimately we can do what we're here for, right? Execute on the projects that we want the public sector to do and transform our communities with better businesses and better housing opportunities.
I think some of the plus or things to look at that we could present to, some city councilors have not worked with HEDIC as long as others have, and some even have come after, that 5-year period when the redevelopment authority was, which is actually recreated, wasn't the infancy, but really was recreated. And, HEDIC is 7 members with, business people, real estate, engineers, from the community that have, in the history of HEDIC, I think there's a lot, to be told, a great, positive story. Redevelopment Authority, and HEDIC works citywide. The Redevelopment Authority, has a wonderful plan, the largest urban renewal plan in the state to date. And I think you pointed out, the minuses of trying to get that plan implemented in terms of, not having the assets and not having the ability to do it. But the makeup of the Redevelopment Authority isn't as close, I think, to the city as HEDIC is, and being that the one member is appointed by the governor. I think it's 5 members, if I'm correct, or is it?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and the other 4 being appointed by the mayor. And the definition of the members aren't as broad, and I think bringing in, the community of Holyoke in terms of banking, real estate, manufacturing at large, and so forth. So I'm trying to think of each of the members, the role that they play, the political one too, but he's a nobody, he's only been on HEDIC since '91. But I think the stories need to be told, and then everybody put together and think of how we can make all of this work. And, it's the assets that are in HEDIC were built up by former position that you hold now and former boards, over the years, and have been used pretty much unscathed. There's maybe less than a handful of projects that, that went bad, and even less number of loans that went bad, and, most everything was successful and does work. But manufacturing isn't what it used to be, and the definition, is manufacturing, and there's no way getting around that. But maybe there's a way we can kind of, maybe merge is not the correct term. Maybe it's, send a couple of free agents over to the Redevelopment Authority from HEDIC, and, like I think one of our best, and he's getting up there now, and, several terms is Mike Murphy from the credit union, a tremendous asset in terms of his knowledge. Carl Leaguer serves on both, and his knowledge and connections to the state is incredible. But I think this is a good order. I think it's time we figure it out one way or the other what we're going to do.
I would add, if I may, that in the recent history, great collaborative relationship between HEDIC and the HRA for the Parsons Paper Project that actually entailed the 4 public corporations that the city had, because the HG&E was involved, and even the Housing Authority on the back end buying the power. But really the core two were HRA and HEDIC working on the project management and the last bit of gap financing. So that sets up a good relationship going forward.
And the other thing that I always forget is neither body works without the leaders, the city council and mayor approving what they can work on. Redevelopment Authority being, we adopted the urban renewal plan, HEDIC, the economic development plan, which is more case by case, but they don't just operate in their own vacuum. They operate within the parameters of what has been approved by both the council and the mayor. But I do think Mike's right. We need their leaders and their leadership and to be able to, see where we think we're going or where maybe we can get to. Anything else? Michael?
No, this is exactly what I'm trying to accomplish, is get the people together in the room and let's hammer it down.
So motion then will be
Motion to table.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Marcus, thank you.
I'm all set.
Yeah, and we'll go back to, you're all set.
Thanks.
As always, thank you.
He's riding a bicycle. No, I just got it.
All right. Item number 5, introduced by Councilor Sullivan. The Honorable City Council present our representatives in Boston with a resolution in support of Sheriff Cochise plans for substance abuse recovery facility at the Hampden County House of Corrections. Current program lacks the adequate follow-up and none are local in Western Mass. Motion to receive for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Michael, if you want to take the lead.
Okay, yeah, so basically what I want to get done here is just a letter of support from Representative Vega and State Senator Humison to get going. We made a trip, the police chief and several members of his staff and myself, out to the Ludlow facility back in September. And basically he has out there available 72 beds right now. And this would be a program they're already doing it in Essex County, maybe one other county also, but the one I'm familiar with is in Essex County, down in the eastern end of the state. And it's very, very, very successful in the treatment of addiction problems. And the idea behind the program isn't to incarcerate people. It is at the prison. But it's a program. They're not in the general population. They're not wearing prison uniforms. They have a very regimented program of counseling that ranges from everything, from drug interdiction counseling to job training and emotional problems. And the good thing about the programs that they're developing in the upper state, they also have very strong follow-up also. And that's one of the big problems, when the people enter these programs, is there's absolutely no follow-up. Right now, if someone is sent from Holyoke to a program down the other end of the state, they can be there 3 days, 5 days. They can be held up to 90 days in the program, but no matter how many days it is, they're just simply put on a bus and sent back, and there's just no follow-up on it at all. We also met with Maureen Walsh, who's the presiding justice here in the Holyoke District Court. And I'll just read briefly from a letter she gave us when we were talking about the civil commitment of these people. And this is something for their own protection, also for their own good. These are people that have really lost the ability in their lives. We see this more and more, but she addresses it quite pointedly here. The civil commitment of those who have alcohol and/or substance use disorders is on the rise. The heroin epidemic certainly appears to be the prevalent reason for commitment. Despite legislative changes to the existing statute to expand the time of commitment treatment up to 90 days, the average length of stay at a facility is 20 days. The need for treatment beds statewide is an issue with which we all struggle. And she goes on to cite some numbers and statistics about how many people in this area have gone through the program and or appeared in front of the court, because that was one of our questions, is how many are actually turned away. But 86% of the cases brought in to the Holyoke District Court do go out for treatment. Unfortunately, go to the other end of the state, and it's very, very unsuccessful. And not to exaggerate, but the success rate here is probably less than 1%. So I just think it's a great program. It lacks the funding here in Hampden County. As the sheriff outlined it to us, this program would be also a regional one. It could also host for Hampshire County as well. And they have the facilities and the resources out there. They have the people being trained. They just don't have the same funding that is happening down the other end of the state where it is being successful, and we need it here.
Any further discussion?
Do you want to approve the resolution, or you want to discuss that tomorrow night at the meeting, the full council? Send to our representatives and their state senator?
Would it be correct to say a letter of support. To our state delegation and perhaps the governor too?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to add the governor to a chair. What do we say? We're looking right now just...
Resolution support of his plans, Sheriff Cochise plans for a substance abuse recovery facility.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mike summed it up. I think it's a need. Judge Walsh is correct and always correct. That it's a growing demand. And Essex County it's the eastern part of the state, the only place where any of these civil commitments can be sent. These are not to get confused with people who need treatment and people who need detox and treatment beds and facilities and transitional treatment beds. Those are all demands too in the western part of the state, and there are new beds and programs opening them up. But this civil commitment, although it's not jail, it does coincide with the state House of Correction system itself. The difference being is they don't know or they may not understand it, but the civil commitment, they can literally walk out of the place at their own will. You can't keep them. Right. But most of them, I think, is very sad, are in a state of dire need, and most of the time it's a family, member that's making the civil petition for the commitment itself. And it does serve a big purpose, and sadly enough, there's more and more demand for it.
Yep. I would also be remiss here. I missed one thing that she mentioned here that'd be good for the public to know is I continue to be impressed by the manner in which the Holyoke Police Department responds to the needs of its citizens in this as well as in many other areas. So I think that was good to hear also.
We should, if they haven't, we should send a copy over to the chief. But is there any other discussion? Motion then to receive Councilor Sullivan's order to adopt and recommend that the full City Council send a letter of support to our state delegation, the governor, and copy to the sheriff, I would say.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Okay, item 7 is introduced by Councilor Roman. And I apologize. At the start of the meeting, I didn't explain. Councilor Bartley is under the weather. He's not feeling well this evening. I think it's the first time he's ever missed one of the DGR committee meetings since was appointed to this committee, and especially since he's been chair. And he did ask me to fill in for him this evening. I apologize, David, if you're still listening. And Councilor Roman notified, I believe, our administrative assistant that he would not be able to attend this evening. This next item is introduced by Councilor Roman. There is nobody here. It's that the attached letters from the Morgan 8th graders in support of the park bondage and repair for the Valley Arena Park be submitted to the Development Government Relations. We have all that, but I don't know what the intent was other than receiving them and knowing that the good students of Morgan School are in support of the project. But I would suggest, until we hear from Councilor Norman, that we table this item for a future meeting.
I'll second that.
There's no other discussion, the motion to table, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Our final item is item number 8. It's a constituent letter that we received back in November from addressed as a constituent who was here early this evening. But prior to the meeting, I did have a chance to talk to him. This letter, it's handwritten, and I can't read the first name, but the last name is Harbus, and I did explain to him that we had public hearings and a very, not lengthy, but kind of a very important agenda, and that we would do our best to get to him. But he had another commitment this evening, so he's going to contact our administrative assistant to find out what happened. What I explained to him is his request is that a community garden be placed across from Sam's convenience store. He recognizes there's plenty of room, and understanding that the vacancy could be something not just for the neighborhood, but for the entire city in terms of being able to grow, and certainly they would love to work with Kate's Kitchen. He goes on to some other positive uses of community gardens, which I think we all are in support of. He does cite that he's lived in Holyoke for 3 years, from 2014 to 2017, and it occurred to him that a community garden at this place across from Sam's would be helpful in many different ways. Very nice gentleman, with a sincere desire to do something with a piece of property that's vacant. After talking to him, though, and from what he explained to me, it appears that this is the lot that is next to Haberman's Hardware, which, as we know, Haberman's Hardware, after decades of service to the city of Holyoke, did close recently. The property, I'm not sure if it's up for sale, but the property is currently not being used, and this vacant piece next to him is thus not being used either. I explained to the constituent that it's private property, and the city could not really, and the city is not in position to budget-wise to spend money, but the private property, perhaps they could work out a deal with the owners of the property, and I suggest that we perhaps tell the city council that the order has been received, complied with, and refer it to the mayor's office for future, perhaps for future reference in terms of if there's any grant money out there or anybody out there that might work with Haberman's to run a community garden. It's just a shot, but I think he understood, and he apologized for not being able to stay.
So make a motion that it's received, comply with, and sent to the mayor for possible future grant money to utilize.
Second?
A second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. That's it for our agenda.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Motion made and seconded that we adjourned, and these committee reports that were adopted out will be on our full city council agenda tomorrow evening. On the motion to adjourn, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned.
Following over to Joe.
They still haven't signed it.